radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting UnderTheHoodShow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search, Autotempest.com/hoodie. This is the Under the Hood Show. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Hey, welcome to the show, everybody.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter, here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. What's caught your attention? I had a life flashing before me moment on the road between the last show and this.
What did you do, Chris?
So did I.
Did you?
Oh yeah, I got something to talk about.
So I grew up in a city. I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota. And when I was a kid, there weren't many eagles around. They just weren't around.
Did they not tour in your area?
They did not tour. They the very first bald eagle I ever saw in nature was with my son. So I was already an adult, had moved away, came back. I actually was in St. Paul when I saw it. Very first time I ever saw a bald eagle in nature was like 20 years ago. And now I see them constantly.
They're all over.
They're all over.
What does that do to you?
It makes me feel good. When I see them, it's like when the F-16s fly in Sioux Falls. I have to go look, and I always stop and look. Whenever I see an eagle, I think it's the greatest thing. And I was driving in the country on my way home recently, down a county road, and there was an eagle feeding on something on the side of the road. And I was like, oh, this is neat. I'm going to be close to this eagle. That's going to be cool. And it didn't fly away. And as I got close to it, it launched itself and went right in front of my car and above it. I was probably 5 feet from that eagle.
Was he coming head on to you?
No, he was kind of flying away, and and I thought, I'm going to go to prison for the rest of my life. If I hit this eagle, I'm going to go to prison forever. That's it. I think that's how it works. That's at least how, in my mind, it works. If they would have arrested me. I would have called and said, hey, I had an accident. This happened. And they would have just put me in Leavenworth forever. That's what I didn't hit it. And now I'm still here. I'm free. I feel good.
That is good.
My patriotism has been boosted. And my heart was pounding. I thought that was it.
Did you get you on your music and turn on a Toby Keith song and
no, I actually
just crank it?
No, I
thought you were going to say it was life-altering as you were driving along in your Pontiac Solstice convertible. I saw the eagle as it launched itself over my car, and with my open roof, I looked up, and with my mouth open in awe, I said, "Ugh."
Yeah, I actually did turn on the Eagles. It actually made me do that. I switched over.
You went to the Eagles.
Yeah, I did.
I thought maybe you would have pulled out a Toby Keith song.
No. 866-594-4150. You had an experience as well. A matter of fact, they were on if it wasn't the same day, it was an adjacent
I'm guessing
day.
your eagle was just having a hard time flying.
That's exactly what it was.
I was complaining to you about it, Chris. I said, what is this? How come we didn't find out about this sooner? And it happened like 10 minutes before that?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
You wanna?
I don't really want to talk about it, but I think there's a lesson for me that everybody else can.
You're not indestructible.
That everybody else can learn from.
I learned that lesson earlier that day before you. I watched it happen.
Well, my wife and I went to Sioux Falls, and we had this plan. I mean, my schedule is very tight. I don't have a lot of extra time to do things, so I really have to look at when we're going to do something. It kind of needs to happen. And so the day was that day that we were going to go pick up 3 bookshelves that were going to go into our living room. They attach together and form a larger structure.
Sure.
And so we were picking them up in Sioux Falls. We took off and got there right when the store opened, and we looked around a little bit, and then we loaded them up in my enclosed snowmobile trailer.
Okay.
The night before, I had taken out the snowmobiles and any extra stuff that was in there because I didn't know how much room we were going to need. I had a fuel caddy in there that I don't often use, but I realized it was full of fuel, and I hate these new gas cans, caddies. They don't have a vent on them. They swell up like, they're just plump. And so that night at about midnight, I had opened up this gas caddy, and this is part of the story, and had dumped the fuel into my lawnmower, most of it, and the rest of it back into one of my cans that I had, one of my containers I had in the garage. So I had the only thing in there. I took a floor jack out. I took a steel floor jack, a big, heavy floor jack out of there that I always keep in there. Took a bunch of stuff out, except for the spare tire, and then I put this empty fuel caddy that goes on the back of my snowmobile tunnel back in there. And a shovel and a broom that always stay in there. Mm-hmm. So that's maybe not as important as I'm leading it up to be. But we're down there. We load up the cabinets. We're very careful. Kids' gloves. These are painted. They mark easy. They're black. They're not, it's just not going to work good if something happens. Mm-hmm. While we're there, when we left, the wind was blowing. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that because I live in South Dakota. You've been around wind blowing your whole life. While we were there, we got onto our phone. Our phones all popped up a alert from our local Kello TV notifications I have turned on from their weather center that there was a high wind warning. Like, it's going to blow a little harder. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, that'll probably be later. So we'll go. We'll be okay.
20 minutes.
Yeah, this is a 26-foot enclosed trailer, aluminum, pretty light. You can kind of tell where the story might be going.
Now it's empty.
Yeah, now it's basically got these bookshelves they're heavy, they're not cheap, but my wife and I can handle them with some assistance from our 14-year-old daughter on one end with her.
Okay.
And we can get them turned on their side to get them in the front door. We didn't call neighbors to help or anything.
Right.
While we're at the furniture store, the lady actually says to us, the wind's blowing pretty hard. Do you guys want to leave that trailer here and you can come back later? You just park it out back and we'll lock it up and you can come get it later. I'm like, no, we'll be all right. We'll go through some of the county roads and we'll take our time going home and we'll be all right. So we're going home and the majority of the trip is going north. The wind is blowing out of the south. Eventually we have to go east. We can't go north forever. We do eventually have to go east. And so we start cutting off by our good friends, the Vollins Midway filling station. There's Ravens has got a research center out there, and we're cutting across that East Road, and there is literally dirt blowing across the fields because the wind is blowing so hard it's starting to pick up.
It blocked out the sun.
It was like dirt like the dirty 30s. I hate to say it. It
really was.
It was really blowing. And as we're driving, I told my wife, I said, I don't know what's going to happen here. I said, but just the trailer is starting to track out in my mirror on the driver's side. At this point, we're committed. I could have turned around probably and went back to Midway, but everything was okay. I'm just like, let's keep going. I was going about 45 miles an hour, just taking it easy. Kept on cruising. Got turned on to South Dakota Highway 11. We're just about up the road for the local Yokos to where the Tucker's Walk Vineyard is at, going up that hill. And through that whole area is a big valley. And it's obviously a typhoon through there. Uh-huh. And as we're going down that highway, I told Tammy, I said, hang on. I don't know what's going to happen. I said, hang on. And
literally.
Yeah. And the trailer was getting pushed into the other lane. We were meeting traffic. So I was pulling over just to be safe. And I was down to probably 40, 45 miles an hour. And as we're going up the hill, I've never had it happen before. We always buy the salvage. But I watched the trailer in my mirror starting to tip up like a kite. And it was the worst feeling in the world. And so I've been around enough stuff driving. I'm like, okay, I try to turn the other way and step on the gas. It's a ball hitch-mounted trailer. And I floored it and tried to put some power to it, and it would come down a little bit, and then I did it again, and then that final gust of wind, once it got underneath it, it was done. And I watched in the mirror, watched it go completely on its side. There was the traffic that we had just met had just went by. Thank you, Jesus. And the trailer got pushed sideways as we tried to pull it off to the side of the road, and it blocked the entire Highway 11 traffic, both lanes. And as we were getting ready to go, I just told my wife, hang on, and thank goodness it twisted enough that the ball popped off the 2 5/16 ball,
Okay.
and the trailer was just being attached by the safety chains. I had my safety chains properly hooked up in a cross pattern. They caught on the bottom side of the hitch like they're supposed to, and that kept the trailer attached to my truck, but it let it rotate so that it didn't tip the truck. And so we went, first thing I did is ran out of the vehicle. I'm calling 911, and I'm at the crest of a hill. So people coming from the other side did not see me.
Oh, no.
So I ran as fast as I could to the top of the hill, and I met a lady in a Subaru, and I said, "Can you stop traffic?" And she saw me waving. I said, and so she stayed there and stopped traffic. My wife got out then eventually and helped. Once her and I had both settled down a little bit, and the sheriff came, and we decided that the quickest way to clear the road was let me go back 5 miles. My daughter came and picked me up and go get our wheel loader from work. And you can see a video on my Facebook page of us getting it off the road. Russ's partner at the install shop, Jake, just happened to drive by. He was coming back from the shop going home, and he happened to drive by and stayed and helped. I got the loader. I'm not the normal loader operator. I used to run loader all the time, but I haven't for a long time, so I had to kind of reacclimate. So the whole way over, I'm making a plan. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And we were able to set it down gently enough that the cabinets, which were scratched up, beat up, one leg broke off. Between the three of them, we got them salvaged. They're in the living room where they're supposed to be behind the couch. The trailer's got a few $1,000s damage. The moral of the story is it happens.
Yeah.
High wind,
Don't drive.
light trailer. Next time it's going to stay parked in Sioux Falls. I learned the hard way.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. Autotempest.com/hoodie. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Maryland and talk to Randy. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Randy, what can we do for you?
Thank you all for taking my call. You're my favorite podcast, especially on long trips.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
I have you all you do a great job. But my son has a 2006 Ford Ranger 4.0, and he gets his license on this Saturday. And we went to the dump last weekend, and when we got there, we unloaded everything. We had turned the car off. We go to start it, and it has a no start. It was cranking over, but it seemed like it was out of gas because it wasn't trying to start. It was, it had a strong battery, but it wasn't going like blah 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 blah. So it was just trying to start. Then to try to troubleshoot it while I was there, I swapped out the fuel pump relay with a different relay that was the same kind. Turned the key, you could feel the fuel pump relay click. And then you all talk a lot about when you turn the key that all the lights, check engine lights should show up on the dash. So when you turn the key to the on position, all the lights would show up. I then, popped one of the coil plugs off and stuck a Leatherman in there and was arcing the spark. So when you turn the key over, it was getting spark. So it seemed like it was perhaps fuel related, but I don't know if maybe there's a crank sensor or something like that. So I guess really just kind of I'm hesitant to drive it and get stranded again because we called for a tow truck, and then maybe about a half hour while waiting, we tried it one more time, and probably tried every 10 minutes, over the course of like 45 minutes, and then it fired up and drove home like nothing ever happened. So I'm a little worried about getting stranded somewhere, especially when my son gets his license. So I don't know if maybe it's a fuel pump or a crank sensor, and if you got to do the fuel pump, I guess maybe pulling the bed is maybe the easier way. So any advice you all have would be great.
That sounds like the same thing that was happening with our friend Scott's Ranger that we found a problem in after we'd put a motor in it, and it had been doing it before. He had a Ranger pickup, and then after they got it going, then it would die on them. And you said you swapped relays already, though, correct?
Yeah, there was under the fuse block, under the hood, we found what the, where the fuel relay was, and there was like 4 of them that were all the same type of relay. So then I popped it out of the, one out of the wiper relay and put it where the fuel pump was. And when you turn the key, you could feel it definitely click. And and then after waiting, that about 45 minutes for the tow truck to come, it fired right up and ran. And I tried to start it up again this morning, started up just fine. So I don't know, maybe there's like a bad spot on the stator and the fuel pump is my best guess, but I don't know.
What's the etiquette on that, on a tow truck?
What's the etiquette when you're at the landfill, whether you can just leave your vehicle there?
Right. Well,
Well,
they just,
If it's not running and what your degree of disgust is, it's like, can I just push this in?
if you call for a tow truck and when they get there, your car starts, what do you do?
Well, it depends
You
on,
pay
in my
them.
opinion, how far they had to come and how polite they are.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
It's not going to be your decision.
For us, personally, if we call our go-to tow truck company and tell them to go get a car, if they make a trip from their home office 2 miles away to go get it and that car starts, they'll bill us. I expect them to. But if they're out, running around and we call them and then the customer calls and says, hey, it's run, don't come get it, and they haven't made their way over
They haven't
there yet,
dispatched anybody specifically or anything.
then or they haven't had time to go make that run. They're
You have to
still towing.
respect the cost of
Yeah.
that truck and that man. And
I just tell them, you guys are fair with me, I'll be fair with you. So if you're on your way to get it and it's stopped, we're not going to charge.
Hey, Randy, how'd that go for you on the tow truck side of things?
Actually, it was a Sunday, so it was, I think, Air Park Towing out in
AAA?
Montgomery County. And no, I haven't, and I felt defeat because I've never had to get a car towed.
Ah,
So I called them, and they said they'd send somebody out, and they seemed pretty fair and reasonable. And then, they said they'd be there in about 45 minutes. And then, after about 20 minutes of, into there, I tried it one more time. It started, so I called them right back and I said, hey, if I got to pay you something because you've already been on your way, that's fine. And they said, no, it's no problem. We didn't have to come get you. So they were super kind, and certainly if I need it again, I'll call them.
Do you know what the big deal was there? Is that you cared enough to call them and respect their time.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of people, we see this from people that order parts and don't pick them up and don't say anything or whatever it might have to be. Their life is good. They don't care about anybody else's. And so the more of that mentality we can take out of society, the better.
Right.
So that phone call that you make just to say, hey, I'm good right now. Thank you. If they would have wanted to bill you $20-$30, you probably would have paid them. But they were
Oh, yeah.
apparently the situation was such they didn't feel like they were put out or made any extra effort. Let's get back to this Ranger, Russ. What you were making some hand gestures over there, and I wasn't quite picking them up.
yeah. And so on that model Ranger, that we have seen quite a few of them that would have the fuel pump fail when they'd get warmed up. They'd just stop spinning, and then when they'd cool off, they'd go. But one of the ways we could kind of diagnose that, if we would turn the key to the run position and not just check the relay for clicking with our hand, but listen back at the fuel cap. If we don't hear anything, then we'd try to have somebody crank the engine while we banged right on the center of the tank where that fuel pump divot is in the
Kick
bottom
it with
of the
a
tank.
boot
the low
if you're
spot.
down at the landfill. You might have a boot on.
Just whack it and see if it fires up. If it does, that's a quick way to tell, hey, my fuel pump has failed. And that would be the most common thing that goes bad.
I have had to do that
Camshaft
before.
Camshaft sensors as well have problems on those, we've noticed.
There's a great success feeling when you actually kick the tank and it works.
It starts
But a
up.
lot of them you can't even kick the tank because there's a big guard over it and you can't hardly get at the darn thing. So it's kind of hard sometimes.
Yeah.
So Russ thinks. So did you do a listen to the tank or did you just kind of have the click?
Because of the there's big loaders driving around and stuff like that, I couldn't necessarily hear the pump, and so that was something I didn't get a chance to try to listen for. But I guess based on your experience, I mean, I'm fine. If you all thought whatever you all think might be the most likely culprit, I'm fine just going and replacing
You're
them.
16, almost 17 years old on that fuel pump. I personally wouldn't be driving mine around with a fuel pump that old. just because it's a mechanical part that runs with brushes and it wears with age, I'd put a fuel pump in it just for the sake of a maintenance item at this age. That's a lot of time running on it.
I got one last question after Russ's advice there. How rusty is this truck? Is it clean? Is it rusty?
We live in Maryland, so we do get some road salt. The truck's in pretty good shape. My father-in-law had given it to my son for his first car. It's got exactly 100,000 miles on it right now.
Well, the reason I bring it up, we got to break.
Great.
I got a break against this here, but just make sure don't discount the wiring back there on the frame for any ground wires on the harness. Back at the actual sending unit itself, if it gets corrosion up along the top, you could have an intermittent connection issue back there. And some of that you'll check with a multimeter once you get right into the circuit if you don't find the problem. But don't ever discount it with that age of a vehicle, what could be going on with some wiring or that sort of stuff back there.
Randy, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. If you like our Facebook page and join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Craig Newroth, who listens to us in Idaho Falls. Congratulations from all of us under the hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. I was just talking with those folks this past week, and we're going to do a little segment with them on a separate podcast and a video thing on YouTube, talking about the school and what they offer there, some of the ways you can get in on some of their special programming and some of the financial aid stuff they have and things like that, all to get you trained to be a better automotive technician. So check out Universal Technical Institute. They're coming up to their summer season pretty soon here where the school will be out. So if you're planning on a career, if you're one of those college kids out there who, maybe thinks that, I want a career change. What I got in school wasn't for me. I took my classes and I'm a smart kid, but it's not for me. What I studied something biological flux capacitor engineering. I don't know. And you said, nah, I just don't want to do that. I want to work on cars. Check out uti.edu.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Paul. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Paul, what can we do for you?
I have a comment, not a question today. I wanted to do a spring tune-up on my 06 Honda Pilot and V6, and I was just pouring gas in it. The mileage has just been really horrible. And so I did all the usual things, and then I did spark plugs, and then I come to find out that they were like 3 times more expensive than they were the last time I bought them. And so I went with the cheapest one, and he said, well, this is a cold plug. But anyway, I've got great gas mileage now, and I'm about 3 days into it, and I'm still on that same tank. I think I doubled my mileage. But the thing is, the point I wanted to make is, I held the comparative, held them up to the sunlight, and I didn't really see they must have been fouled in some way, but anyway, the new plugs did the trick for me.
Yeah, if you've got a plug that's fouling because of contamination from the additives and things you get in fuel, gasoline carries a lot of additives in it, and when those additives start collecting on that plug, that can be an issue as well. So simply changing plugs can make a huge difference in an engine, even if they don't look super worn. If they're carrying a lot of age on them,
just not doing their job.
Yeah, it's time to change them. So you could definitely pick up mileage by changing them.
Did you do coil boots or anything at the same time, or any of that stuff?
I did not per se. I broke one, so I had to go out to the U-Pull-It and get one for a couple bucks. But I'm the happiest guy in town now.
Awesome, awesome.
Good time to do it too.
Yeah, and you know what? If you've had, like Russ said, even if you can't see it, if there's plugs that were not in great condition, and you put in cheapest plug that they offer, and they're all good, and you put in the most expensive plug they offer, and they're all good, it's going to be a difference.
Right. Paul, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Mike. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Mike, what can we do for you?
Yeah, morning. I'm having a problem with on diesel, the filters plugging up with this kind of a dark brown goo that forms the filters and plugs them up. I've had it on the tractors now and just on the skid loader and swap out the fuel filter and it goes again. What has changed over the decades? Is it and plus I've noticed in the fuel filter how corroded the metal parts were.
Are you getting your fuel bulk delivered to a farm,
Yeah.
or are you picking
From
it up?
a co-op. Yep.
Okay. Little concerned about your tank and what might be going inside your storage tank.
Growing.
It might be growing. Is it possible, Russ, that he's
Well,
got some algae going or something like that?
It's definitely possible you've got some out. Not necessarily the fuel they're bringing you, because that's usually checked and tested, and they make sure it's clean, and they'll know, because if they're pumping it through their filters and they're getting that, then they know they've got to address that. But once you get it into your tank, farm tanks can grow algae. They've been known to do that, and you can put an additive in that tank to kill that. Our partner Justice Brothers has a diesel fuel supplement, not the anti-gel, but the supplement, which is meant to kill that algae, and one bottle is good for like 250 gallons. So let's say you got a 500-gallon tank, you just dump 2 of them in there, and that'll treat the inside of the tank so that when they bring the next batch of fuel, you're good to go. But that algae, it can get pretty nasty.
Yeah, and I would,
clog
you know
stuff
what,
up.
I would talk to your co-op and ask them, they've probably got an ability to sample fuel
Yes.
Right. Out of your tank.
out of
and-
what you've,
yeah.
what you're getting, just to have them check the content of that fuel.
Bring them your fuel filter. Stick it in a bag or a bucket. Bring it in a bucket to them so they can keep it from getting all over. I'd prefer it in a bucket if it was coming to my shop. But then bring that to them and say, well, first ask them if they can do it. But I believe Shannon's right. They should be able to check that and
Because
find
if they're
out
in the
what it
bulk
is.
delivery business, they're going to have resources available to them, even if they don't have them in-house, be able to check what,
And maybe even look at it
Yeah.
and go, oh, yeah, this, yeah.
you know, if they have an expert that's got the experience in their staff, which they should. That is what that's our first hunch. We kind of jumped on algae, and I think you were about to say something else. So let's hear if there was more for you to say, or if we just jumped on that. What do you?
Well, the only thing I'm wondering if they're using, and I kind of think they are, maybe it's a soybean percentage in their oil or not. I'm not sure. I'll have to.
They call that, they just label it as biofuel now, and that encompasses both ethanol, diesel, anything made to fuel a motor vehicle that's biologically engineered, partial renewable type thing from plant-based things. The problem with using too much in the past has been with issues with gelling up the fuel, because the soybean base and things like that will cause problems in the winter, but not in the summer. I was using 90% biofuel when it was available. I don't know, what is it, a decade ago, Shannon? We
Yep.
had it up here, and it smelled like French fries, and it was great. But then in the fall, when I knew it was going to start getting cooler, they would stop carrying it. They would just switch over, and the tank would run out, and I'd do the same. And I never had a problem. I did that for about 3 years and had no problems with the fuel filters or anything in my vehicle. And we're usually one of the first people to notice problems when they're going to come up, because we're a shop. We're going to get calls saying, I've got a problem with my vehicle, like you calling the radio show. We'll get emails and calls, and they'll say, we're having this issue, and we're just not seeing any. You're the first with this. So I'm thinking, no, unless we have another 30 calls in the next month here, I'm thinking that there's probably not any issue going on with that.
With the fuel itself.
With the
it's
fuel at this time, but it's very likely delivered into a farm tank that you do have some kind of algae.
Wasn't there
going
a
on.
time when I'm just recalling, I think from the show, that the biodiesel, if you had an algae problem, that could encourage the growth. If the algae was present, the biofuel was more susceptible to. That sound?
It depends on a lot of different things because a lot of the biofuel is treated with products to keep things from happening, but also there are organisms which will feed on petroleum products, but not on food. The same thing happens down in the Gulf of Mexico when they have oil leaks from rigs on the ground where they're drilling. And when I say the ground, it's still the ground, even though it's under half a mile of water. There are microorganisms there that eat the crude oil.
We use the same thing in our wash system at
Yeah.
Nordstrom's 2.0. In our closed-loop wash system, it filters in microbes.
They won't eat a pizza, but
No,
they'll eat
petroleum.
Yeah,
And
that's
so as that water aerates, we use the same water for almost a year in washing parts.
so
Because of
therefore
those microorganisms that are in there eating the oil.
they can't thrive on the soybean oil and the biofuel. They will not digest it, but they will.
We need to get a sample of your
petroleum
fuel and
products.
see what that is, but our hunch is it could be an algae.
Yeah.
Mike, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Illinois and talk to Michael. Michael, you're on the End of the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, you're welcome.
I have an 11 Mustang. It's a 6 automatic. I purchased it new in September of 2010. It has just over 32,000 miles. It has never seen salt or snow. It's been in heated storage in the winters, and it has been rained on 3 times. That's it.
That song "Got to Be
it is
Somebody's
truly
Baby" is coming to
correct.
mind.
It is my baby, and you know what? I'm going to have it till I die.
That's awesome.
In fact, I'm sitting in my garage smoking a cigar and looking at
Oh, I love it. I love it.
it. I have a heated garage. It's kind of chilly here in the Chicago area
Oh, he's
today.
having a Mac
so
Jones
it's
moment.
what well, I'm retired, and it's what I do. So I change the oil on a regular basis with Valvoline full synthetic with the OEM oil filter. Often I change it before the book says to, just because of how, I at least once a year, because some years it only had 1,000 miles on it. I now clean the air filter because I put in a cleanable air filter. But last year I had the brake fluid changed and the coolant changed. Now, what about the transmission oil and filter, and what about the rear end? I mean, they don't tell you much about that. And it's certainly those oils don't have the mileage, but they're going to be 12 years old this year. And and the fuel filter I'm going to do this year. What else should I be looking at, and what do I need to do to keep this car forever?
Well, Prince said forever is a mighty long time. So I won't continue. The fluid in the transmission, if you haven't ran this car hard, the odds are in your favor that it's in very good condition yet. But there is an element of time, like anything else. Is that garage that it sits in there where you're smoking that cigar, is it heated by your cigar or anything else in there, or is it?
Oh, yeah, no, it never goes below 70 degrees.
Okay, so you're not getting the temperature swings to build up a lot of extra condensation in there to build up moisture. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing when it comes to storing something. Now, you probably don't have air conditioning in there to take the humidity out?
No.
Okay, so you're still in the summertime getting some pretty good temperature swings. If you have a real hot day and then a cool night, you can get that moisture buildup. The other day I opened up the door in our shed and our big warehouse up in Garrettson, and it was that days that wind was blowing and it was 75, 80 degrees, but the inside the building was still probably 50 degrees or 40 degrees. And when I opened up the door, the floor turned wet instantly, from the cool concrete.
Mm-hmm.
It just turned wet instantly. And so there was a lot of moisture being generated. So I would look at those fluids in the transmission to get flushed anytime. I wouldn't call it an emergency, but I would do it anytime. The rear end carrier itself is not as susceptible to that. But there's a time and a place that you could schedule that. But I wouldn't be as concerned about that myself. But transmission fluid's got quite a volume that sits down in that filter housing or the pan housing, and it's susceptible to those moisture swings. But other than that, your coolant, in that 5 to 7 year window, if you haven't done it yet, you're going to want to flush out that coolant just to get the fresh additive package in there. That's the biggest thing, is getting your chemical packages updated so that they can do their thing. And then just making sure that you take that car out whenever the weather's nice, when the rain's not coming, the wind's not blowing, and you just take it out and go on a good loop around the city and get it warmed up. Make sure you drive it a half hour. That's going to be your best medicine for that car.
Michael, thanks very much for the call. Sounds fun.
Yeah, it
Just
does.
sitting in the garage. I've done it.
Do you do the cigar?
I don't do the cigar, but I do sometimes just sit
rub
there and look
with
at
a
it.
diaper.
Yeah. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search, Autotempest.com/hoodie. This is the Under the Hood Show. Now let's go to Nebraska and talk to Tom. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Tom, what can we do for you?
Hi, guys. I've got a GM Teflock radio question, so this might be a little bit different kind of car problem. But I'd like to swap the radio out of this 96 Buick LeSabre Limited with the Concert 2 sound system, the factory OEM radio with AM/FM cassette. I found in a salvage yard a OEM radio, same type of sound system, out of a 96 Buick Park Avenue with a CD player, which is kind of the reason I'm wanting to do the swap, kind of wanting to upgrade the radios. On the internet, I've found all kinds of information about how this probably isn't going to work. And I'm just wanting your advice on what kind of problems I'm going to run into with the Teflock system that they put on these things.
The internet is wrong.
In about this time frame.
The internet is wrong.
Okay. Okay, well, that's good. That's good to hear.
Yes, the internet is wrong. Now, one thing I'll just give as a precursor for anybody else out there listening about switching radios, one thing that the internet would be right about is on certain models, if you end up with one vehicle that has a fully integrated Bose sound system with amplifiers at the speakers, that head unit might only be sending out a line-level signal that won't work in another vehicle unless it has the accompanying stuff to go with it. In your particular case, what you're describing, that's not the case. The theft lock, I like the old theft locks where you used to just hold the mute button long enough and then it would unlock it. That's what my 89 Trans Am has in it. But theft lock 2, they actually went to using codes. So you've got to, what is it you got to do, Russ? I don't even remember.
You just use a Tech 2 and you can unlock it with that, just with a handheld scanner. If you have to. You may not. If nobody's ever changed the code in it, you should be able to just plug it in and it should work.
That's not new enough where they're encoding the VIN number into it or anything like that. But when you get into newer stuff, they actually tie the VIN number of the vehicle to the vehicle radio, sometimes the temp control, because they want those components all to be registered on the data network, on the, basically you call it the low voltage data network, the CAN bus system, because they're all talking to each other. In that car, the only thing that's talking to you is that radio telling you that you're listening to the Under the Hood Show and you should leave it there.
Good one. Way to go. Way to bring it back around.
Yeah.
There you go, Tom. No worries. Thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Now we're going to go to Tucson and talk to Richie. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Richie, what can we do for you?
Hello. Yeah, guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
You bet.
I apologize in advance because this is my third call to this your show in regards to my problem. It's the 2016 Hyundai Tucson with oil consumption issues.
I do remember the call. How are you doing? What's the latest?
Okay, I just wanted to update you on this because I'm at the 1,200 miles from their last top off, their last oil change, and they want me bringing it back into Hyundai for the fourth time. The last time, that's Hyundai's criteria. The last time I was in there, 1,200 miles ago, they topped it off. I was down 1.5 quarts in 1,200 miles. And they told me that this does not meet Hyundai's criteria for doing anything about it. So what they need to do is they have to see it one more time, and then they're going to send all the data to Hyundai, but they doubt very seriously if they're going to do anything about it.
Well,
so this is where I'm at right now, 78,000 miles.
Well, one thing I would just tell you is that it's hard. There's not much else you can do because here's where this is tough to say, but unless you're going to spend $12,000 of your own money or $10,000 of your own money to put a new motor in it, you're waiting for them to do something. The vehicle's still moving. You're not going to do that. So your best option is to remain patient with the folks at the dealership and with Hyundai.
Yeah.
Let them walk through their process, because I do know in talking with people that work at the dealerships and different things like that, and they're good people just like you and I are, that they're going through a process they have to do. The manufacturers have really gotten tighter, would be the right word, on how they handle their warranty situations. When things were really rolling and they had inventory galore and everything else, it was not uncommon, but they had supply of everything. It was not uncommon for a lot more wiggle room on a warranty. But the dealers themselves have been put under a lot of scrutiny by the manufacturers and find themselves in a very difficult position where they would really like to do something for their customer, and the right thing to do would probably be to do something for their customer, but the solutions are not affordable. I mean, if they sold a car to somebody and they made $800 to $2,000 on it or something after incentives that they get back from their manufacturers, it doesn't put them in a great spot to spend $10,000 to put a motor in the vehicle, even at cost. So they really want to cooperate with their manufacturers and kind of, I hate to use the word kinda, but that's a fuzzy word, do the dance and pray that at the end the manufacturer will say, okay, this one's established enough here, this is one we're going to take care of. That's your option right now, I think, because it sounds like it's because the dealership's in a tough spot too, I'm guessing. I just know this from talking to people that are good friends of mine that work on the backside of this stuff, and it's not easy for them either. And so they're trying to be professionals, they're trying to be the best they can do, but just hang in there, and hopefully the end of this maze will be a piece of cheese that you'll like.
Yeah, that's the only thing you can really do is just stick with it.
As long as they're having you do something,
right.
I don't think they're just kicking the can down the road to say, if we do this long enough, maybe he'll go away. No, they're going through a sequence that the manufacturer's asking them to do.
And to be honest, they might be kicking the can down the road, but to finally the same point we all know it's...
You know what I've seen happen before, too, is that all of a sudden the manufacturers start delaying a bunch of these warranties, and then all of a sudden there's a extension of a warranty, or there's a settlement available, or there's a solution available, and they may not have it yet.
Right.
They may not have enough engines for something they know is coming.
Right.
So they're scrambling on the backside, too.
And working at the same problem, too, to try and get it all handled. 866-594-4150. That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Hour 2 is coming up. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants. For Russ Evans, Shannon Nordstrom, I'm Chris Carter. Thanks for listening to this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Remember, you can find us at underthehoodshow.com, and you can watch us on our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening to the Under the Hood Show.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting UnderTheHoodShow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. We appreciate you being here.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, Hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. As the music was playing, we were getting calls on hold, ready to go. So let's get right to the calls this hour and talk to Craig. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Craig, what can we do for you?
Hi, guys. Hey, I got to make a quick comment about Shannon's story.
I don't know if I'm ready for. I don't know if I'm ready for this or not.
Well, I feel for you, but when you said I was taking it easy going 40-45 against a 50-mile-an-hour wind, I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, no, the wind was a side wind. It was coming, so I had to cut east, and there was a south wind coming right at me. It was just ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah, I know. That same day, you want to hear something else funny? That same day when the wind was howling, I was out checking cattle in the four-wheeler. I came up to the house to eat, and I parked. I wanted the wind blocked, so I parked at an angle where the house was blocking the wind, but it was behind the wife's vehicle. She happened to leave before I did.
Oh, no.
A bright red four-wheeler. Yep. She backed into it at like 1 mile an hour, pushed it a couple feet, did nothing to the four-wheeler, and $4,000 of damage to an edge.
Oh.
So I just feel for you after hearing that story.
I think my damage on my damage on the trailer might be similar.
Yeah. It's just how things go sometimes in life.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah, that could have been a lot worse in your situation, so it's good that's all that happened.
I thank you.
But
I say thank you. Go ahead.
Yep. I've got an F3 250, and it's got 190,000 on it. And the other day, my son started it, and I was in a different part of the farmyard, and he said it just made a crack like a rifle went off. And we popped the hood, and it actually blew the plastic intake manifold on a 5.4. Just wondering if you've ever heard of that or what. I'm assuming it was a backfire, but is that really strange, or is that something that can happen to actually blow it? There's pieces of plastic laying there in the cavity, of the engine now.
Yeah, a backfire will do that, and it is pretty common if you've got an engine that has, let's say you've got coil boots. If that thing's been missing for a while and you got coil boots that are failing and failed coils, so it can build up enough fuel in there and then it ignites it and explodes, it can do that. Issues with cam phasers can do that if it's not quite in time, or you get a valve that hangs open a little bit and it gets fuel up in there. Anything causing it to not run properly can do that, even tune-up stuff.
Would an injector that's leaking out a little bit?
That can do it, too.
Because that's not a direct injection. That's going in that rails.
The thing is, you got to address the things as they come up all along the line. So if somebody puts a new intake on this now, you still got the old problem. And what was it,
What would you do at the shop?
Exactly what
are you going to do at the shop? That comes in as a customer vehicle, and they tow it in, and they say, here, the intake blew off on a backfire. What's the process going to be at the service center?
We're going to put a new intake on it, clean everything up, and we're going to inspect all the spark plugs and coils as best we can and say, look, we got to replace the stuff that we can physically see is bad, and then we're going to fire the engine up. And if there's any codes in here, they've got to be addressed right now. And we can't make any guarantee that this isn't going to happen again, because we don't know what the cause was, because we've got the result. So when you drive it, if you start finding things that are like, hey, it's kind of misfiring when I'm driving it, you got to get those addressed and fixed. It's not real common on this engine or any other engine, but it does happen. We've seen it on Dodge, Ford, Chevy.
Used to see it in the 3800 V6s every once in a while.
Yeah, those would be
the
when
GM
they
V6s.
crank low voltage and they'd be trying to crank over, and they'd start flooding it with fuel, and then bang, you get an ignition and blow the manifold right off.
So he's got a good chance, though, that when you get into that, he might have some trouble codes in the computer's history.
There's going to be some because the intake's blown apart.
And that would give you a point to where to look first after you get it physically repaired.
Right.
Was the check engine light on in this truck over the last little bit?
I don't drive it that much. I think it is, but it just gets used like 1,000 miles a year hauling water. So I don't, I'm kind of one of them pickups that you just aren't paying much attention to because it's kind of on its downhill slide.
Could have a valve
that
stuck.
Okay.
Sticking.
It seemed to be running fine. I didn't notice a miss, and a very noticeable miss. But and that 03, would that have cam phasers? I didn't think that started till like 04.
Well, it depends on whether it's which
03 Super Duty
engines.
Probably not.
Probably not. No.
Yeah, 03 Super Duty probably not, because that was I think the old generation motor still being used. Because then the same thing in the 03 on the Super Duty, you could either get a 7.3 or a 6.0 on the diesel. So there was a lot of carryover stuff in 03 as they came out with that model in 02 and started changing it going forward. What a run of trucks Ford's got on those Super Duties, though. My goodness.
Craig, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Anthony. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Anthony, what can we do for you?
I've got a 2004 Chevy Silverado 3500. It's only got 362,000 miles on it.
Just that,
and occasionally it'll have an engine. Yeah, just that. Occasionally it'll have a slight engine knock. It's not always there. It kind of comes and goes. Is there anything I can put in the oil or the gasoline to help prolong the life of the truck?
What engine's in there? 8.1 gas?
I think it's got a 6-liter.
6-liter gas? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it only when it's cold, or does it do it all the time when it does it, just like whenever it feels like it?
I haven't quite determined, throughout the winter, as it's been cold the past couple of months, it really hasn't done it. Since it started to warm up a little bit, I've noticed it the past 2-3 days.
Okay. Usually when the outside temp's cold or the engine's cold, if there's a noise, it could be a lifter thing, but if it only does it when it's warm, that usually eliminates the lifter issue, and it's usually more of a lower end issue as the engine warms up. Piston slap is also more of a cold issue, but you could try. Somebody really needs to listen to it that could identify what that noise is. That's familiar with the knocks and noises in those engines. And say, oh yeah, that's something more serious. Or hey, you could try an additive. But if you're going to try an additive like an oil system cleaner in that, if it was a lifter or something like that, this is possible. We've seen some 6 liters with some lifter noise issues in them, and some of them will do them when they're warm and cold. As the pressure drops off a little bit, as it warms up and the oil thins out, yeah, it could definitely be doing that. So you could try some oil system cleaner in it.
I don't think there's anything fuel related that's going to change anything on that noise on that 6-liter gas. That would be unlikely. It's fuel related. Most likely, 362,000 miles on that 6-liter. We've got that similar engine in a lot of our delivery vehicles that we run, our Isuzu cab overs. I mean, it's
over 200,000,
and we've get them high mileage on them. And you'll notice a little bit of rattle from a piston every once in a while, or just some slight clearance issues that'll make an extra noise. And I guess I would call that the equivalent when I listen to our trucks. I'm 85 years old. My hip hurts every once in a while, but for the most part, I get to do what I do. I'm not tearing my hip apart.
Right.
At 362,000 miles, if it's running good and working good, I might try some ibuprofen and, see how it goes the next day. But, yoga, goat yoga maybe.
Hot yoga.
Hot goat yoga.
At 85?
Did they do that? Hot goat yoga? Imagine what that would smell like.
That would not be good. Anthony, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search, Autotempest.com/hoodie. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Tracy. Tracy, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Oh, just I think a minor problem here. On my '05 CRV, I just started getting a P0139 code. And I was just wondering on that particular engine with 330,000 miles, is that more likely to be fuel injector or maybe the rear O2 sensor, or, that's kind of what I was thinking, but didn't know what I should do. And I'm not opposed to spending money because it makes me money.
Yeah, I mean, with that many miles on it, we've seen injectors fail. We've seen the catalytic converters fail, and we've seen those O2 sensors.
I didn't give you that as an option.
Yeah. I know
We're
why.
going down the laundry list, Tracy.
Yeah, this is expensive. Nobody wants that option. But yeah, they can all.
But in theory, though, Russ, if the vehicle's been running good, up and taken care of, the likelihood of a converter going bad is low, but it does happen.
No.
Well, yeah, it does. I mean, there's not as many catalytic converters replaced as there is oxygen sensors and fuel injectors. I
have a couple other hints.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that I don't want to get people too freaked out. He's giving me that smirk. You see that particular look right there?
It is funny though. We have. I would say in the last year we've replaced an equal amount of catalytic converters as we have oxygen sensors.
That's historically different than usual on vehicles.
Yeah.
Though.
Well, for the last 5 years, it's pretty much been that way. We just don't really do a lot of oxygen sensors. It's not like saying, "Oh, we do 500 oxygen sensors." We don't. We do, 5, 10, and we do maybe 30 or 40 converters.
So Tracy, you said you had another clue.
Yeah, I got a couple more clues actually. For a period of time, these Hondas had a problem with low tension piston rings.
Mm-hmm.
And for a period of time, it was using about a quart of oil every 1,000. Then I used some high-end cleaner. Then I used some high-end cleaner in it, and it's been fine for like 100,000 miles. It's using a quart about every 1,800, which I think is normal. Also, for the about 4 years I've owned this thing, I check my fuel economy with an app every single time I gas up, and that has not changed at all.
That hasn't changed at all. Zero. The likelihood of just an oxygen sensor failure is pretty low because that uses the front one primarily, but the secondary one, it still factors that in a little bit. If it's got a failure in it, it's going to affect that fuel economy a little bit. It's looking at both of them to get a general reading. So, but with the age you've got on it, the downstream one, that's the cheap one. The front one is a lambda sensor and the fuel ratio sensor. The downstream one is just a regular, should be just a regular O2. So it's a third of the price. You're not going to hurt anything by replacing it if you want to do something yourself. And I don't even want to guess on price. I can't even guess on prices anymore. They've changed so much. Like the guy said previously on the show, I went to get spark plugs and they were 3 times the cost of what they were, and I got the cheapest ones instead of the most expensive ones. Yeah, we're seeing that. I priced out a set of spark plugs only installed to a guy with a Ram truck that has 16 of them about a week ago. And he says, "Wow, what, your labor rate's gone up that much?" I said, "No." I said, "You've got 16 plugs at $22 a piece." And he was like, "Those things are only like $6." I'm like, "I guess again."
Really changed that much? I haven't bought spark plugs for a while.
They're anything
I'm
iridium.
assuming Honda injectors are reasonable.
It depends. We have put a couple in over the years, and they really weren't that bad. Going back a year ago price, they were like $65, so, they could be double that now.
Okay.
Tracy,
I really appreciate your help.
Yeah, Tracy's a rural carrier for those that are new hoodies, and he's over the years called us a lot, and he's got always a good adventure to talk about, and he's very in tune with his vehicle, and we appreciate that because he can talk.
Tracy, I have a question for you. You're in Idaho. Are you in a flat-ish area of Idaho or a non-flat-ish area?
I'm in Montana.
Oh.
I'm in South Central. I can see huge mountains. And I go over some passes. I gain like about 2,000 feet a day and then back down. So not huge, but a hilly area, I would say, near Billings.
Okay.
I just want to let you know that
If
we
you've
know
ever been to the Billings Airport, it's up on a mesa.
we know you're from Montana. Our producer tricked us.
When
He
I
tricked us.
as I started, I
He
was
put up
like,
ID on there, and so we started saying Idaho, and he tricked us. Now he switched it to Montana,
like he didn't do anything.
like nothing was wrong.
See, Chris, the MT stands for mountain.
Oh, okay. Tracy, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Now let's go to Georgia, I think, and talk to Allie. Allie, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Oh, hi. So 5 months ago, I purchased a 2011 Lexus RX 350. On the Carfax report, there were 3 minor accidents, and I was fine with that because it's cosmetic, fully functional car. And I recently got some bumper damage after hitting a little wild pig. And when they went to repair it, they discovered, upon removing the cover, that there was no impact bar, and one side of the rail was crushed inward. And so someone decided not to repair it and just put a cover over the vehicle. And apparently there were 2 additional owners, and then it went to the auction, and then it went to the dealer, and then I got the car. And the dealer says they didn't know about it, and they talked to Carfax, they talked to the auction people, they couldn't help them, they couldn't do anything about it. And so they said I could trade in the car. And I said, well, I would like full purchase price to swap out with a different car, and they said they couldn't do that for me because I put miles on it. And I said, okay, I want to keep the car, and the estimate is $5,400. I want to have you please contribute toward the repairs then. And they said they'll get back to me, so I'm waiting for their call. But since I bought it as is, I know you probably don't give legal advice. Since I bought it as is, I'm thinking I don't have a case, so I'm just hoping they'll just give me something to help, pay for the repairs, and I'll have to, cover the rest of it. But do you have any advice for me?
I have one leading question before we give advice.
Yeah.
Russ is ready to give some advice, and I'm around these
Just a
situations
little,
a lot.
and he's got a lot more problems.
What's the status of the title of the vehicle now today? What was this? What's the title status? Is it a salvage title or just a standard title?
Standard. It was not salvaged at all.
And it has no history in Carfax's records of a salvage title ever being issued.
Nope.
And the auctions that it was at, were they used car auctions or salvage auctions?
I'm not sure about that one.
Okay, that was a couple questions I had to get my mind flowing a little bit here. Russ, what were you going to say?
Well, some states, such as ours, have really weird laws on their books that will help in what happens when you purchase a car. Not everybody's aware of them. Like sometimes when you hear those laws that say it's illegal to
punch a horse.
Well, on Main Street in downtown Atlanta, Georgia.
Right,
Well, that's not going to happen today. But if you did it, technically, are they going to do anything? Probably not. But the laws in the books. There are some states that have laws that say if a car is sold, you can return it if there's any damage to the seat belts, because it would affect safety. Like if you had a nick out of a seat belt in the corner of it, like maybe a dog chewed on it or rubbed on the side of the car, well, they sold you a car with a defect, you have the right to return it. So there's some crazy laws like that out there, but some of them aren't too crazy. So you will have to ask an attorney who is versed in car sales, and I would say look on the internet to find people who know
local
about those
that's
things.
in your area.
And if they found something, for instance, that says if a car is sold with hidden unrepaired damage, maybe you have the right to return it if it's found within a certain amount of time, and that would definitely be unrepaired. The other thing you can do, and it's going to be extremely hard, I mean, even for us as car people, we would have to really do a lot of digging, start tracing that car back. If you could find out where that damage occurred, because it's frame damage, so that's considered pretty big. If you could prove who damaged it and sold it as damaged without disclosing it, then you'd have something there, but
Well,
it's so hard.
Here's a different route, Russ, and this kind of walks me right into a age-long discussion that I've had with people. We want to help you, but with some ideas. I would contact your Department of Consumer Affairs in your state, not to file a complaint, but just ask them what are the applicable laws in our state in regards to used car sales, and in particular to used car sales with a damaged vehicle. What I'm thinking has happened here is that at some point in its life, it had a repair done. It was probably a repair that was paid for by an insurance company. If it doesn't have a salvage history and it doesn't have a salvage auction that it's been through, as you look at, and a repair shop, and it's very few, but a repair shop did a poor repair job and didn't do what they were supposed to do by what they got paid to do, most likely. And if that's the case, that repair shop, in a sense, did not good for the insurance company, and the insurance company would not be happy about that. And now that is not going to help you, but in that situation, that repair shop did something they weren't supposed to. Now, when I hear of that kind of repair, it sounds to me like somebody that did a self-repair on a vehicle that wasn't insured or chose not to turn it into insurance. It never hits the records of Carfax. It never hits anything, and that's why we always encourage a used vehicle inspection prior to buying a vehicle. I'm not trying to chastise you, but for other listeners out there, taking that vehicle and putting it up on a rack, you probably would notice that frame rail. It's kind of hard if it's just the end of it.
Yeah, and I know that car, that 350. So when we're doing an oil change on one, you've got it up in the air. It's fully shielded underneath with plastic covers.
Yeah, it might be hard to see.
I can't see the bumper.
But without a bumper rebar, that cover almost had to be soft on the front.
It's got to be loose.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of things. But Carfax, if a car has a clean Carfax, they'll work with the dealer and give a Carfax guarantee a lot of times. But since there's damage history, that probably doesn't apply either. I think you are probably going to be at the cooperation of the dealership that you bought it from to see what they want to do to try to help you.
Let's talk about what her options are. You know, if you need the repair, ask around. Don't just take the dealer for the first repair. Ask some independent shops, because I think you can get that repair cost down since the paint looks good on the outside.
And if the end of the rail isn't, I hate to say it this way, but if it's just bent a little bit and it's not too bad, you might be able to use it as is, and it still would be healthy for another collision as long as the rail isn't collapsed back in further. It could be the cosmetic end of the rail that got damaged.
Sorry, we can't give you a concrete answer on that. That's
a lot of things to think about.
Yeah. Thanks very much for the call. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel and you join the Hoodie Fan Club at UnderTheHoodShow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like George Buavecchi, who listens to us in Atlanta, Georgia.
No way you got that right. There's no way you pronounced that right.
I had a friend named Buavecchi, Matt Buavecchi, in Livonia, Michigan.
Oh, well, all right.
I am so glad you read these names.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You realize how bad Shannon Nordstrom would have screwed that name up? Oh, it would have been horrible.
First and last.
Jorge Buvaca.
And if your name is Jorge Buvaca,
you didn't win.
You didn't win. On second thought, send me a copy. A picture of your driver's license with the the pertinent information scratched out.
If
like
there's
the number.
a Jorge
I'll get you
Buvaca,
one.
I'll get a hoodie.
Yeah.
We'll send you one.
From our friends at Universal Technical Institute.
UTI.edu. Check them out today for all your automotive technician wannabe super tech kind of person.
Go do it.
Stuff.
You're done quicker. You just go do that, and then
Do
you
it.
gotta
Do it.
And the money they're making now because all the stuff. Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk to Bob. Let's go to West Virginia. Bob, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Well, I have a 2004 Chevrolet Impala, and I'm getting a random misfire P0300, and not a 301 or 302, but random. So I checked all the particulars, such as the gas cap and the spark plugs and so forth. I changed the spark plugs 10,000 miles ago, so I'm assuming that it's the coil bank. There's 3 coil banks on there,
and I'd like to know if I buy the least expensive of these coils, will it confound the computer in any way?
The actual coil pack itself shouldn't matter, as far as the computer doesn't care what's in there. But some of those coils you get, you can find some really cheap stuff, but they don't tend to last very long. Now there's an argument to not buy the very most expensive ones out there, but the cheap ones, not so good. Okay. We've found there's ones actually under names, like on Amazon, like More Better, More Gooder.
I won't buy anything that's more
better,
gooder.
Better going. I'm like, wow, where do you come up with these names? And obviously they're all, made in China parts. But then again, a lot of parts for American OEM cars are made in China. A lot of the electronics and stuff. So a name brand, we use Motorrad coils. Our partner at Motorrad makes a very good coil. And if you want to make sure that, see what happens if you put a cheap coil on a car and it doesn't fix the problem, so you think, oh, it's not the coil, but really you've just put another coil on that's not very good. So unless you've got a known good car where you could go take them off, and sometimes people will have two cars with the same model engine, so they just swap them out and they go, oh, problem followed the coil, so now I know I need coils. If I buy a cheap one and it doesn't work, well, we know it was the coil. But in the case where you've got a car that's got some miles on it, you're going to keep it a while because it's a nice car, we would put the Motorrad coils on it. And
Motorrad. How about TRQ?
I'm not even familiar with that name, which kind of scares me.
That sounds like they might be more gooder.
Yeah.
Better or bestest?
Yeah. I'm not familiar with it at all, and we should be with this big a show. I think we would have heard of it, but I haven't.
Doesn't trip.
Okay. How about Motorrad? Where do I get those?
You can get Motorrad at most any auto parts store. Just check your local auto parts store.
Okay, that'd be good. You cannot get them online then?
You should be able to. Yep, go to Motorrad.com.
I'm going to look that up.
Check them out.
Bob, thanks very much for the call. Partner of ours that we've done business with for a long time.
We use their stuff, too.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Justin. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Justin, what can we do for you?
Yeah, how are you doing today?
Well, very well. How about you?
Doing good. I bought a 2015 Polaris recreational vehicle last week. The guy sold it to me as is. Got a really good deal on it, and it only has 150 hours, 384 miles, and he says it ran in October of 2021. But when he ran it, it was kind of sluggish, and now he can't get it to start. He changed the fuel plug, the fuel injectors, the spark plug, and ignition coil, and still can't get it to turn over. It'll crank, but it won't start. So we took the top end of the motor out, and we didn't check the compression with the compression testers. We didn't have one until today, and there wasn't real much compression on there. But I just didn't know, like, something that young, it's 2015 with only that low of hours. I mean, what else do you think could it be that would cause that? Could it be a fuel injector relay possibly? Not maybe the intake valve? Is there anything you guys can help out with?
I want to back up just a little bit here because you went from 0 to 100 pretty quick there in what you did. And so Russ and I both gave each other a look. When you said that you took the top end of the motor off, could you explain that a little bit more?
We just took there's 3 bolts on top of the motor, and so all it did was expose the camshaft, the 4 valves. So it just gave us a look to see if the valves were moving.
Okay.
The piston was going
that
up
makes
and down.
me feel a lot better because
we say top end, we think you pulled the cylinder off.
Yeah, I'm thinking, that was kind of
before checking
fast.
compression. So
yeah, no.
All the valves are moving up and down, I would assume, and then you check compression, and you have you've a very low compression. Now you need to take a leak down gauge and screw it into the spark plug hole, and then you'll apply compressed air, and it'll tell you what the leakage is of the cylinder, and then you'll be able to hear where it's going by. You turn it until it's up on top dead center, so all the valves are closed, and then you listen for the air. If it's coming out the exhaust, you got a valve hanging open. If it's coming out the intake, you got a valve hanging open. If it's going by the piston into the engine, it may just be flooded out so bad that it can't seal up good and it needs to dry out good. And sometimes you can just leave the spark plugs out of it for a week or two and get it good and dried out. Rotate the cylinder a few times while you're doing this. Every day, turn it down to the bottom to the top, and then try to fire it up. What could have happened is because it sat for a long time, it may just have not fired up because of old fuel, plug fouled or something, and then it just kept cranking and flooded this thing so bad that you dropped your compression down a lot, and it's not going to crank. So by drying it out super good, putting a new plug in it, and if it's got fresh fuel in it, it may actually fire up and run just fine. We've had a lot of cars do that.
When it was parked last, they said it ran fine?
Yeah, October 2021 was the time he said it still ran, and then he hasn't had it running since. But, yeah, he bought it from a guy. He bought it from an old guy that drove it around on his property and that never went mudding in his life, never had a hard life. He said when he bought it, it ran well. So
where did it get stored at?
I didn't ask him if it was stored outside or inside. I did not ask him that.
Well, I mean, I just get a little curious. Does it try to fire at all? No. It'll do the cranking sound, but you can't hear any any ignition startup or My nephew's a small engine repair person that works on a lot of this kind of stuff, and if he was sitting here, he'd probably say, "Hey, try this," because he's around that stuff every day of his life. And I know that there are some intermittent things that come up on all the brands.
But step one is compression.
Exactly. You got to get to the basics first. But I just wonder if it was stored somewhere where maybe a rodent could have got into it, and there could be a wiring issue of something that got bit on, chewed on.
But we have no compression.
Yeah. Well,
we got to do that leak
exactly.
down test first and find out if we've got a valve that's hanging open on it. Maybe there's a mouse in the valve. We have seen that.
Come up through the exhaust.
They crawl right down the exhaust pipe. They get all the way in there, and bloop, there's hanging in a valve.
Yeah,
going,
so
help me, help me.
Is it living in there and you just have to yell and scare it out?
No,
I mean, come on.
Would be,
no, it's got a little house in there and a little matchstick furniture. It's fine, right?
Using one of its golf clubs to hold the valve open, you know, for ventilation.
Yep. Justin, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That was, I have to say, as a person who had no idea what any of that was, it was refreshing to hear you talking to someone who could take that advice, it seems like. Like when you were telling him that you have to check the compression and all that, he's going to go do that now? Whereas normally we're telling someone that that's what they have to ask for. And
I was a little nervous when the call started, I'll have to admit. It sounded like they were going pretty fast.
Yeah.
And just ripping into stuff, and I was like, oh.
But now, knowing they're not, it feels, I'm pretty confident in this thing.
And for people that were listening and wondering what the heck that was, he's most likely talking about a Polaris Razor, a UTV. You see them with 2 seats and 4 seats, and they're very popular in our parts. They're popular all over the country.
Right.
Definitely popular around here. But that's what he was talking about.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search, Autotempest.com/hoodie. This is the Under the Hood Show. Now, let's talk to Al. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Al, what can we do for you?
Hi, guys. I have an 03 Z4 BMW. Cool. It calls for 91 octane. Can I get by using E30 in that without a problem?
If it was my car, I would.
If it was my car, I would also.
I can't tell you whether you can or not, wink, wink, but on my car, that's what goes in it. You know, I've got a 13 Camaro that won't run on anything less than about 92 without going ding, ding, ding. So I just run 30 in it, and I have always, and it runs great. We don't know exactly what was done to that car before we got it. Something weird. It's been apart, but boy, if I run just 91 premium in it, it just pings and doesn't run well. But you run the E30 and it runs great, and I have had zero issues. And when I've switch back and forth. I drove from here to Rapid City over 4 hours on 91 or on E30, and I got better mileage on that than I did on the 91, which I had to get as premium going the other direction. And it wasn't windy either way, and it was similar temperature. So I've had some other chances where I've only been able to get the premium fuel. And aside from being super expensive more, even when fuel was half the price a couple years ago, I've been much better on the 30 for me personally.
And you don't mix it.
No.
You don't mix fuel. You go straight E30.
We have it available in our pumps. A lot of people do around the country, but there's quite a few of our listeners don't even have it as an option, so they cannot get it. So they don't. But yeah, I've never mixed it. I've always just got it right out of the pump as a straight E30. And there are some performance vehicles that are labeled right on the fuel cap, either premium or E30. Is just your Land Rover have that, Shannon? That one? Didn't it say something about
ours is a flex fuel
on the Land Rover?
So
and
I can
didn't
go
it
up
say
to 85.
either? And it said premium or.
I got a green cap and I can go up to 85.
Okay. Yeah, so you've got it's just basically what they're asking for is the octane on it. They're saying
they need the octane, and one of the most affordable ways for an oil company to get octane is with biofuel, and it's one of the cleanest additives for biofuel that they use.
Right.
And so it's very, very good, but there's a lot of different people out there that have different opinions that just haven't taken the time to get educated on it. And if you did use E30 and for some reason your vehicle had a sensor that didn't like the extra alcohol content,
turns the light on.
It's going to turn the light on.
And then you say, "Oh,
it has."
Don't do that again. Or
no,
it's not the end of the world.
It's so far. I put 5 gallon in the other day, and just driving around town, it has worked well. But I knew you spoke of it, and you put my heart at ease. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Russ, we had a call that you wanted to talk about on the air because he can only listen to the radio show.
At the gym, he listens to the podcast like a lot of our listeners do, too. So he's got a 2011 Ram, and he wanted to know, it's skipping gears. Unless he shifts it manually, you drive it down the road under just a normal light everyday load, and it goes 1, 2, 3, 5. I mean, it's like jumping a gear. Well,
Jack in New Jersey, by the way.
Yeah, so to put your mind at a little ease, a lot of vehicles do this. They're programmed that way. The ones that have multiple speed, especially you get up to 8 and 10 and 13, so you get a lot of speeds in these transmissions. They skip over the gear intentionally. The Camaros and things, the Corvettes, do that all the time with the manual transmissions. They'll jump a gear under a light load, but under full throttle or heavy load, they'll shift every gear. They block the gate, so you can't shift when you're manually shifting it too. It just jumps to the next gear. So the automatics do that as well. They want to make sure they get the engine in the lowest RPM range and match the torque band, which gives you the best economy plus the best feel when you're driving it, so that you don't, you're not, feeling like you've got a harsh shift. So that it's probably normal in the case of what you're having, what you're seeing, especially when you can manually shift it and you're fine. If you take off at a pretty high, here's one way to find out. Take off at a pretty strong rate, like when you're getting onto the interstate. If there's nobody around you where you can come to a complete stop before you get on the interstate, just give it, 3/4 of throttle when you're taking off. So I mean, you're not spinning the tires, but you're taking off at pretty good clip, and just pay attention to it. Does it shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like it's supposed to, or does it still miss that gear even though you're under that heavy a throttle? If it does, you may need it checked out, because even with a skip shift type system, it could have an issue going on, or sensor failing or something, throttle position sensor or something failing in it.
866-594-4150. I've been getting questions that I have passed along to you guys, and you see it on the news, and it's been a common thing. When someone has a catalytic converter stolen, and this specifically came up with a friend of mine, had their catalytic converter stolen. They can't get one. They've taken it in. What do you do?
Yep.
And they were told they can't get one. So they're just parking their car until they can get one.
There are some options.
Okay.
There are some options, and I thought I had put in the text string that I had an option for you.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a couple different companies in the country that will recertify or just certify a removed, recycled original equipment catalytic converter that comes from a car. Under the current terms of the Federal Clean Air Act, myself, if you're listening for this first time, as a professional automotive dismantler, I cannot take a catalytic converter off of a car and just sell it to your friend. I'm not allowed to do that by Federal Clean Air Act law unless that converter has been through a testing process. There are a couple of testing labs that have came up around the country that I can send the converter to, get it certified, EPA compliant, and then sell it to your friend as a complete removed item. It's not the cheapest option in the world, but it is available. There are aftermarket options available that not all of them are CARB certified. As in, there's certain states they can't refine enough, or they don't trust it enough to refine to the level of the emission standards of some of the states that have got more stringent standards. Now, that had been changed, and now it's went back. The political winds have been blowing. There's plenty going on in that regard. But I can tell you that a lot of those converters, that when I process them with our buyer for the scrap catalytic converters that extracts the platinum, palladium, and rhodium out of them, the aftermarket converters are worth very little. It tells me they have very little precious metal in them compared to the OEM equivalent that goes on there. That's a fact when they get dismantled. So there are options. Now, I also know that we're involved in a pilot program, and a good friend of mine is kind of leading the charge on this pilot program in Minnesota, and they are working with insurance companies, some people from the federal government, and they're trying to prove the case that these converters can be used coming off of a car because they have been tested already on the vehicle. The OBD2 systems on the vehicle have a converter tester. It's called the oxygen sensors before and after the converter. It's called the computer that tests it for them. And so that we have, we've got to have the best test there can be is that the car is able to test itself.
Right.
And gosh, even if that test didn't work, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
It's not going to work.
You're going to put it on the vehicle, and it's not going to put the test, and you're going to have to give them their money back and get a different one.
Right.
So nothing. It doesn't work, and now it's not going to work.
So the net change for the environment is still good because you're going to put a different one on there.
Mm-hmm. And
even if it's not operating properly, it's better than having it cut off and people welding in straight pipes like we've seen on some vehicles come in recently. We just got in a 2002-3 Yukon, and looked like a pretty nice rig, had a couple 100,000 miles on it, hitting the right front. Well, when we got it up on our inspection stand to look at it, somebody had welded flex pipe in.
Ooh, flex pipe bad.
Yeah, where the catalytic converters were, because they either got stolen or they got desperate and sold them to get some money or something. I don't know. It's like a kidney. But they were gone and welded in with flex pipe. So there are options, Chris, but they're not commonly recognized by about any shop, any dealership. But I can tell you that we have an option to get some of those.
Okay.
But it's a process. It takes a little bit.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us. That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Until next time, you can find us at underthehoodshow.com. You can also watch us do the show on our YouTube channel, and don't forget our Facebook page. For Russ Evans, Shannon Nordstrom, I'm Chris Carter. Thanks for joining us on the Under the Hood Show. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturtevants. All right, this is the after show, and we actually, after trying to get Jack on the phone for a long time and him only being able to listen to the podcast, we finally got him on. Jack from New Jersey, welcome to the Under the Hood Show.
Hi. Hello, fellas. How you doing?
Fantastic.
Great.
Here's the answer. It's fine, probably. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
We already talked about
Good
you.
luck working out. See you later. No, go ahead, Russ.
The magic of editing. We're gonna Jack. We're gonna fix this. So you got a 2011 Ram, and when you drive it normally, just under light load.
Hey, should we stop, Russ, and have it do it just like a call? Just like a call.
Yeah,
Let's just
okay.
do this. We're gonna have Jack. Chris, just take us
We're
to the top
live
here.
now on the internet.
We're playing live.
And when you listen to the podcast, watch how it magically
Oh,
just
this is
works.
going to be great. Watch this. Let's talk to Jack in New Jersey. Jack, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Well, I have a 2011 Dodge Ram, and it has 106,000 miles on it. And when I'm driving, it's an automatic. When you put it in drive, kicks through the gears, it's a 5-speed. It seems to, you can feel it shifting. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, when I first got the truck. And within the last year, it seems to be skipping over. It's going from second to fourth. However, when I put it in, I go through the gears manually, put in 1, 2, 3, and it upshifts. It'll upshift into third, but when I go to the fourth gear and I look at the RPMs, there's not much of a drop between third and fourth gear. Now I've towed trailers with it. I've gone to Florida with the truck just last year. It doesn't exhibit any problems, but it's just like I'm thinking I'm probably putting an extra load on fourth gear, and I was wondering, is this a software issue, or is it trying to get in the shop to get something done before it becomes catastrophic?
So you have first, second, third, but then going to fourth, there's not a lot of drop at all?
Well, yeah, there's no drop between. I don't even feel third. It feels like it skips over third, second to fourth.
Okay, even if you shift it manually.
Now, if I shift manually, it'll go into third.
Okay.
So if I'm doing, just say for instance, I'm doing 2,000 RPM in third, and I hit it in fourth, it only drops to about 1,800 RPM.
Okay. Sounds like the clutch is slipping in there.
Okay.
It sounds like you definitely, and it'll do it manually, but it won't do it automatically. It really sounds like it's slipping, because on the automatic position, it's going to look for that gear, it's going to watch it change RPM, and then it's going to shift and go from there, but it'll jump over it if it sees slippage and a failure. So before it gets any worse and would cost more, I would get it into a trans shop and have them check that out. Some of those vehicles have a skip shift feature where they go 1, 2, 4, and such, and 5. They jump over gears unless you've got a strong load on them and you're really accelerating hard. But if this thing always shifted one way and now it's drastically changed, it certainly sounds like you've got a gear that's slipping in it.
What's the condition of the fluid when you inspect it? Are you able to? Have you done that yet?
I haven't. I had it in. I took it to the dealer about 2 years ago, and I had them condition the fluid. They take it in, they drop the pan, they put new filters in it, they put a conditioning fluid in there, and it really drove pretty smoothly, and then it kind of came back into the same condition it is right now.
Yeah, it sounds like may have had a valve sticking in the valve body, so a valve body issue on it, and it probably caused it to slip a little bit. They changed the fluid, it freshened everything up, the valve started moving, but there may have already been some damage done to that clutch. Okay. And now after just normal driving, even though the valves are operating properly, or they could be hanging up.
Maybe it's a valve issue.
Yeah, it might be a burr on one.
For some reason, it's not holding that gear, and it's saying, you know what, I don't want to go there.
Not getting any
I don't
pressure
like this
there.
gear because it's not working the way it's supposed to. So I'm going to try to just either stay here or try a different one. The computer the computer is sensing all that stuff, and it just doesn't want to go there. But manually, you put it there, and it works, but it's probably not working right.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. Because again, the RPMs, I'm not seeing a significant drop when I go from third and I push it into fourth. Not much different at all.
My guess is if you inspect your transmission fluid, you're going to find that it's browned up quite a bit and probably has a little bit of a tint of a burn smell to it. And if it does, then you've got all the indications of clutch slippage. And the quicker you could get it there, it might be that a transmission shop that still is in the business of rebuilding transmissions, they could get in there and update and take care of that with a kit. But if you let it go too long and you start burning up other parts, then it doesn't become an option as much. And for the country right now, getting remanufactured transmissions, remanufactured engines is a challenge. Some of the OEMs are having a hard time. A lot of the remanufacturers are having a hard time getting remanufactured product. So the shops that are able to repair a lot of these transmissions are really coming back into their own a little bit because they don't have to just do a reinstall of a transmission. They can actually take yours apart, fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of I know a lot of the manufacturers even now, they don't have component replacement as often as they used to. They're actually having them do internal repairs. Once again, for the technicians, it has to go to a different repair bay now because they only have certain people that are skilled in that. So the delays become longer on the repair because that person can only do so many of those units, where they might have other people that can take units in and out. Somebody else programs it. You get, that's a little more information just for other hoodies out there.
Does that help you out there, Jack?
Absolutely. Hey, thanks very much for getting back to me. I appreciate it.
You bet, Jack.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much for the call. All right, if you're that took a turn there. That was a whole different thing there. I'm glad we got Jack.
So now we kind
on.
of address both issues that one of these vehicles could have.
Right, that's true.
Yeah. Well, and it just also proves too, for any time you're trying to do something,
Little bits of information.
All the facts are important.
Yeah.
And so you gotta be patient and get all the facts, and that sure helps.
All right, there we go. That is the Under the Hood show.
That's all we're gonna do.
Yeah, I think
That's right.
so.
You gotta go, don't you?
Well,
Fairly soon.
Yeah. What else?
Usually it's me.
You want to talk about
No.
tickets or
No.
basketball?
No.
NBA playoffs?
No, I don't. Yeah, I do.
Trailer? You want to talk more about
the trailer?
your
We talked about enough about the trailer. It's wrecked.
Yeah.
My pride's hurt. Don't pull
See?
a trailer on a 65-mile-an-hour wind day.
I
didn't know it was going to be 65. I thought it would just stay 40.
And that was the thing with our weather lately. It's been going, oh, hey, we're going to have 40-mile-an-hour. 80.
The sheriff said, he goes, yeah, there's a reported 65-mile-an-hour gust in the area. I think I just found one. Hey, I never finished that story on the air, though, about the gas tank. And
Oh, yeah.
the gas tank that I had in there ended up inside the bookshelves. And I'm so glad it was empty and not.
Oh, 'cause it
I would have
would've-
had it's a 5-gallon, or just about 5-gallon thing. I would have had
Smashed
40
wood.
pounds, 50 pounds just flying around inside of there, and then probably leaking gas, too.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have leaked. I don't think it's. Can you make a gas can leak anymore the way they make those things?
Those polyethylene ones, they're pretty tough, but yeah, you could. What happens is, I've seen them.
Where you get hit on the snout.
If they get hit really hard, sometimes where they're threaded on,
Yeah.
they'll blow the threads
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
So you'll blow the cap off.
This is one that Skidoo sells that's meant to be on the back tunnel of your snowmobile. So it's made pretty rugged. I don't think it would have broke open. but boy,
Probably
it would've
won't.
been
They've got
heavy.
some huge threads on them.
The spare tire ended up inside the shelves. It was ugly. It was ugly.
All right, that'll do it for the Under the Hood show. Thanks,
if
everybody.
If you do happen to want to pay a pretty good price for some Game 6 tickets for the Timberwolves, I have an extra set.
What's
really
the date
good
on
tickets?
that?
Tomorrow night.
Are they sitting
8
right
p.m.
next to you?
No.
Oh.
Opposite side of the arena.
Okay.
So you can look across.
Do you want to know the moral of that story?
Did you click twice? What'd you do?
Don't buy tickets at 2 in the morning.
Oh, you just went.
Don't buy tickets at 2 in the morning.
Okay.
It said, "Do you want a pair?" Yes.
Just
I
don't
need two
do it.
tickets. Buy 2 pairs.
If you've drank a couple glasses of wine and it's 2 in the morning, don't buy tickets. And then don't get
advice.
frustrated when you don't get the tickets bought, and then start calling I had to call the fraud center because I tried too many times on Ticketmaster. So I got the message that said that I didn't get my tickets, but it was from one of my other attempts that I
Yep.
had made.
And
so I went and bought another set of tickets.
Yep.
And so now I got 2 sets of tickets.
Yep.
And they're.
All
It's
right.
been a week, but just it's all self-induced.
And let me just say,
It's all self-induced.
I was ready to end the show. You held us up, and then all this came
Well,
out.
You gave a little hint that people are probably like, "What was that about?"
Right, but I said let's stop, and you said, "Are we
But I'm
done?"
okay
I
with
said,
full disclosure.
What do you want to talk about?
My own stupidity can be somebody
It's
else's
full on
It's
display.
either somebody else's lesson or else somebody else's laughter.
That's
One
a
of the
good.
two.
That's a good way to look at it.
It is.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I already did it. I can't undo it.
That's true.
Can't unring the bell.
Thanks, everybody.